Let's go live to Victoria now. We're going to get an update from authorities on the fire situation that's unfolding in the state. Catastrophic.
Welcome to the
right across key areas.
Emergency Management Commissioner. As we've been talking about for several days now, Victoria is in the midst of a severe to extreme intensity heat wave, which is now being matched with damaging winds and storms today that will result in our state seeing catastrophic and extreme fire danger. That means that any fires that are in our landscape today already, or those that may start, will be uncontrollable, unpredictable, and will be very fast moving. The areas that are in catastrophic fire danger rating today is the Wimmera, the Southwest, North Country and North Central districts. The remainder of the state is in extreme fire danger rating. So anywhere in the state today will be challenging and difficult conditions for our firefighters. With the winds that we'll see today, there will be periods where our aviation fleet, that is over 70 aircraft today, will not be able to fly. And so we are reminding communities you need to heed the warnings to leave now. If you're in a bushfire-prone area, a bushland area of Victoria, our strongest advice is leave now if you haven't left already. If you don't leave now, it could result in your life being lost. Firefighters have been working very hard in these challenging and difficult conditions overnight on a range of fires. This morning we've had 40 fires already in the landscape, 30 of those remain active. As a result of the dynamic and challenging conditions on the Longwood fire, I can now confirm that we have had community and residential property losses. We know that we have had the community centre and the telephone exchange damaged or lost at the township of Ruffy, and in and around the Ruffy township there are multiple homes that have been lost to fire. We can't confirm those numbers at this stage. It's still too dangerous to get in and on the ground, but we have seen through our aerial intelligence gathering helicopters that we have lost multiple properties in and around the Ruffy area. On the Walwa fire in the north of the state, we've also seen damage to a significant pine plantation there. 1,200 to 1,600 hectares of pine plantation in 22 years of age, so well-matured pine plantation, has also been lost. But at this stage, there have not been any property losses reported as a result of that significant fire. But overnight, with lightning, we have seen a range of fires pop up across the state, particularly in Gippsland, and Chief Fire Officer Chris Hardman will speak about that shortly. Obviously, our thoughts are very much with the communities in and around the Longford fire at the moment where those property losses have occurred, and we will get around and support those communities today, and the Premier will speak more about that in a moment. Our fire chiefs will also speak about the potential impact zone maps for the two significant fires, being the Longwood fire and also the Walwa Mount Lawson fire. However, we do have a number of warnings already in place. So for the Longwood fire, there are 2 emergency warnings and 2 watch and act warnings in place already for that fire, and people need to heed those warnings. For the Walwa fire, we have 3 emergency warnings and 4 watch and act warnings in place. And again, for the communities in and around that fire, you need to heed those warnings now. We also have advice warnings out for a complex of fires down in the Gippsland region. Late yesterday, we saw 92 personnel from New South Wales Rural Fire Service join us from New South Wales to bolster our efforts here in Victoria, and they've been deployed out to the Longwood fire this morning. We've also requested an additional 117 interstate personnel that will arrive on Saturday to be available for Sunday, and that is a mix of incident management team personnel along with additional firefighters into the landscape. I'll now pass over to the Premier to make some comments. Thanks, Premier. Deputy Commissioner Bob Hill from Victoria, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. For those of you who don't know me, Deputy Commissioner Bob Hill from Victoria Police. From our perspective as an organisation, I can share with the community that we have been working with the fire authorities and other emergency services over the last 48 to 72 hours, alerting communities across Victoria of the dangers that are presenting with the extreme weather. I begin by applauding the community of Victoria, the way that they've engaged with the fire services, they've engaged and listened to warnings and heeded advice from Victoria Police and the other emergency services. An example of that would be last night at Seymour. We had a community meeting where we had 200 people attend in person, another large number of people online, in fact, I think in the vicinity of 1,500 people. And since then, over 35,000 people have actually gone into that website to understand the risks that are presenting to them as residents in that particular area. I want that, I suppose, cooperation from community to continue. This is a particularly dangerous period for all Victorians and those that are also visiting our state. Victoria Police has worked closely with the fire services over the preceding days. We've been working with community. We've been conducting door knocks. We've been conducting patrols, proactive patrols into hotspot areas. Victoria Police has resources across the Murray River, through the Otways, down at Wilson's Prom, engaging with those who are in camping areas, holidaying in those particular parts of the state, advising people to leave. It is a catastrophic setting for the state of Victoria. We need people to heed the warnings as they've been doing to date. I bring to your attention a matter of concern. Yesterday, representatives from the Country Fire Authority were working in the vicinity of Longwood East, I should say. They encountered 3 people, 2 adults, male and female, and a child. The gender I don't know at this point in time. They alerted those people that the risks are great. The risks are so high that they needed to take shelter, that it was too late for them to leave. Later that afternoon, those same fire service representatives re-attended that area to see the house that they saw those 3 people standing in front of had been completely destroyed. Those 3 people remain unaccounted for. Those 3 people, we do not know at this point of time where they may be. Now, that particular area in Longwood East, where that house has been destroyed, is still a hotspot. And we're yet to be able to put the strike teams from the fire services into that area to conduct an assessment for us. But what I implore upon people is to actually engage with friends and family and let people know where you are. If you are unable to do that, please go onto the website that is a national database that's referred to as the Register, Find and Reunite database. That's where we can actually go into and explore and interrogate where people might be. That's where friends and loved ones might be able to go in and, again, find out where their loved ones might be, friends and family might be located. At this point of time, I'm not suggesting for one moment we've seen 3 people perish. All I'm saying is that these people are unaccounted for. Now, an example of where we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves, overnight we had another 3 people reported to Victoria Police. They were thought to be perished as a consequence of the fire. Those 3 people were seen in the Longwood East fire zone. They were attending to some animals in a paddock area. Now, this morning I arrived here at the State Control Centre to learn that those 3 people were still unaccounted for. Victoria Police committed to keeping communities safe, conducted investigations, and now we've located those 3 people, safe and well. What I say with respect to the 2 adults and a young child that remain unaccounted for, they may be safe, they may be alive. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but we are keeping an open mind and we'll conduct and continue to conduct investigations in those circumstances and any other circumstances where we find people that we can't account for. At this point of time, I'll hand over to the Premier.
Thank you to the Emergency Management Commissioner and the Deputy Commissioner. And as the Emergency Management Commissioner has already referred to, there are significant fires in the landscape. and I want to, at the outset, acknowledge the loss of property, that there are many people and families who are currently receiving support and shelter in relief centres, and also too, as the Deputy Commissioner has referred to, my thoughts are with the families of the 3 people who are currently unaccounted for. And these reports from the Deputy Commissioner and the Emergency Management Commissioner is a stark demonstration of the extreme danger that today presents right across Victoria. That today represents one of the most dangerous fire days that this state has experienced in years. In recent days, and particularly overnight, we've seen how the existing fire activity has become more extreme, with the fires themselves creating additional weather, starting new fires in a number of locations across the state, and also with strong winds and with more strong winds predicted to come over the course of today, that those winds will change the direction of the fire and push those fires potentially closer to homes, closer to properties and communities. And this combination of weather factors simply creates the conditions where fires in the landscape can very quickly become uncontrollable. And that is where we are seeing our fire crews have already been out there for a number of days fighting and also through the night in some of the toughest conditions imaginable. They are doing everything they can to save lives and to protect property, and today the conditions become even more difficult and even more challenging. And so that is why I want to be very blunt and very direct about this. There are fires across the state and the conditions are already extremely dangerous. That is why the decisions that Victorians make right now matter so much. If you've already listened to the advice and have left home or perhaps the location where you've been holidaying with family and friends, we thank you for heeding that advice, for taking that advice, because that is the right thing. Listening to the advice and doing the right thing quite simply saves lives. And that is why I cannot be more clear. I cannot be more clear. If you are currently still in a location where you have been advised to leave, you must leave now. If it is safe to do so, you must leave now. Whether you're at home or whether you're on holidays, if you've been told by the emergency services to leave because the area you are in is just simply not safe on this high-risk day across the state, do not wait. Do not second guess the advice. Do not wait for conditions to worsen, because leaving now is the safest option. It's the best options. Please do not leave it until it is far too late. Also too, for those who might be thinking that they can stay and defend in these conditions, don't. It's dangerous, it's not courageous. It puts your life and also to the lives of the emergency services at risk as well. And if you know someone who might be thinking they can stay and fight these fires, please tell them this plainly, to not do so, because we have seen in recent history how fires of this magnitude on days like today with the extreme weather that is being experienced across the state, fires overwhelm people, equipment and any preparation you thought you may have made. You will not win simply against the fires of these magnitudes that are created on days like today. And on that point, there are places for people to go to. There are relief centres that are being established across the state, and there are places where families, communities, animals, livestock can receive shelter and support. And on that point of support, I can also advise that in discussions with the Commonwealth, we have activated the personal hardship payment processes, and those payments are being made available from now, particularly through the Seymour Relief Centre, and further payments will be made available. But clearly, the priority right now is supporting our emergency services, saying very clearly to the Victorian community to please take their advice. I'd also repeat the advice to check in on family, friends, neighbours, loved ones, to check that either they're okay, that they're accounted for, and also to ensure that they've heard the messages and are taking the advice. Which is why the other message today to Victorians is please stay connected to the Vic Emergency app, stay connected to your local radio as key sources of advice in these dangerous conditions that can change very, very rapidly. Before I finish and hand over to the Chief Fire Officer of the CFA, Jason Heffernan, can I acknowledge all of our firefighters and emergency services who, as I said, have been working for days, day and night, already fighting fires that are difficult and dangerous, that will be made more difficult and dangerous with today's extreme weather conditions. We thank you and all of the emergency services who are providing support for these efforts. Today is an incredibly difficult day, the most dangerous day we have had in years, which is why the actions all Victorians make today, the decisions that all Victorians make today, to take the advice, to leave now if it is safe to do so, will save lives. It'll also support our frontline firefighters who are working day and night to protect lives and to protect property. And I'll now hand over to Jason Heffernan.
Thank you, Premier, and I echo the sentiments in respect to advice to the community, and thanks to our emergency service personnel that are out in the field protecting our Victorian communities. I just want to take you through the conditions for today. So in the northern part of the state will be experiencing upwards of 46-degree temperatures, and Melbourne and southern parts the potential for up to even 43 degrees. But it's those hot northwesterly, potentially damaging winds that will be coming across our state that has lifted the fire potential to catastrophic across many weather districts in this state. The state is, whether it be catastrophic or extreme, we are talking fire conditions, as we've heard. If a fire starts and takes hold, they will be uncontrollable, will spread very rapidly and impact Victorian communities. We have already seen this morning, as the Commissioner outlined, a number of fires that have started, and we've already have fires with advice levels at the moment at St Arnaud, the Macedon Ranges and in St Andrews. I would like to make this point. Always have two sources of information. Keep the Vic Emergency app with you or the Vic Emergency website. Listen to your emergency broadcaster. Just because a fire is not at emergency warning level doesn't mean it's not important. Please, if you see an advice message, if you see a watch and act message, look at the message, understand what it's telling you to do and follow the advice of authorities. The conditions are such at the moment that I obviously remind the community and confirm the statewide total fire ban remains in effect until midnight tonight, and I will be reviewing whether total fire bans need to continue later this afternoon, depending upon fire activity and weather conditions as advised by the Bureau of Meteorology. We saw the fires generate their own lightning yesterday. Unfortunately, have it confirmed that we are expecting the potential for more dry lightning from about 2 o'clock this afternoon through the central parts of the state, which will certainly be challenging for firefighters if that's the case. And again, we are asking community, particularly landholders and property holders, if you have had dry lightning across your property in the last 24 hours, please check your property. And if you see smouldering fire or the like, contact 000. I'd now like to go through and take people through the Longwood fire and an update on that. The Longwood fire, as the Commissioner outlined, is still at an emergency warning level, and a number of advices to community to either leave now or take shelter. The potential impact zone map has been updated this morning and published to the Vic Emergency website, which shows the current fire extent and reaffirms the communities that we are warning today that you are likely to come under a potential impact. As you know, last night we told these communities that you should have left last night or at the very latest by 7 a.m. this morning. If you have not left yet, and you are in an area that is not currently subject to an emergency warning shelter now, you can still leave the area and make your way to a safer location outside of the potential impact zone map or, as the Premier outlined, to the Seymour Relief Centre. I want to confirm the communities that we're talking about right now for today. Alexandra, Molesworth, Carrilla, Fawcett, Cathkin, Yark, Karumba, Caveat, Highlands, Merton, Woodfield, Anaconda, Gobo, Terrap, Dropmore, Crichton's Creek, Gurrum, Kelvin View, Strathbogie, Strathbogie South, Kithbrook, Old Longwood, Longwood East, and communities along the Hume Highway to Euroa. You are included in the potential impact zone and required to take action and leave now. At this point, also would like to provide some advice to community. This state also knows the scars of what happens when people do get caught in fires. It could be entirely possible that throughout the course of the day you may hear from loved ones that have found themselves in a situation where they've either tried to leave, they've left it too late, or their plan has failed. If your community member or someone ring you today and find themselves trapped in a home or sheltering as the fire approaches or impacts them, do not take shelter in the centre of the home. Stay on the inside the home, but on the outskirts where you are able to see the outside of the home and the condition outside. Many people who die in houses that are subject to bushfire do so because they lose their situational awareness to what is going on around them and the home catches fire without their knowledge. Stay on the outside of the home, watch for safe conditions outside, and when safe to do so, leave the home and await for fire authorities. We are asking community not to be in bushland areas today. The safest option is to not be anywhere near this for your safety of yourself and your family. I'm also asking community not to travel unnecessarily. Do not travel through bushland areas. There is a need for emergency services to relocate to various parts of this state quickly and seamlessly. Please, let the community help us to help you by allowing emergency services to move freely or to ensure that you do not put yourself in danger, which further allows our firefighters to focus on the main thing, which is protecting those communities that are currently being impacted by the Longwood fire. I'll now hand over to my colleague, Chris Harbin from Forest Fire Management, to talk to you about the Walwa fire.
Thank you, Chris Harbin, Chief Fire Officer, Forest Fire Management Victoria. I'd like to provide an update on the Walwa fire, but just before I do, again, along with the Premier, the Commissioner and my colleagues, when we hear words like catastrophic and extreme conditions, they actually mean they generate fires, and we might think of words like firestorm, conflagration, fires that are undefendable, and if you are caught in the open, it will not be survivable. The Walwa Mount Lawson fire is just under 20,000 hectares and actively burning. That fire will continue to grow, and communities in that area need to keep a very close eye on that fire. Currently, there are no property losses on the Walwa fire, but we have seen important losses for HVP, plantation assets. Around 1,200 to 1,600 hectares of plantation assets have been impacted, and there are more plantation assets at risk. Again, this fire is an emergency warning, and as I said, will continue to grow today. We will also be updating, or the updated potential impact zone map has been created, and I'd like to highlight those communities that are within that zone. But I'd also like to say for those communities surrounding the impact zone, fire with the big columns and the lightning and all of those other things can happen. You know, things can always get worse. So if you're surrounding those areas, you're not necessarily out of danger. So everybody, please maintain that awareness. But the communities include Mount Alfred, Alfred Gap, Cudgewa North, Colac, Batoomba, Baringama, Lucy Vale, the Cascade, Bulleo, Grania, Bungill, Folgalong, and the other surrounding communities. I would also like to highlight some of the other fires that came as a result of a series of lightning strikes that came through the Alpine region and central and east Gippsland yesterday. There are currently 13 fires that are going in that footprint. So those fires, one of those has some potential to impact community today, and that is the Dargo Talbotville fire. That fire has been prioritised of all of those new ignitions. Firefighters are doing their best to contain as many of those fires before the extreme conditions and the stronger winds occur later this afternoon. There are also fires at Cabbage Tree, and there is a fire to the east of Malakuta. That fire in Malakuta, the Malakuta community will be able to see that fire, particularly in the evening. It is not currently presenting a risk to the township, but we would ask the Malakuta community to stay very much attuned to what is occurring in that space. Finally, I would just like to say that it's just not safe to be in the bush. We took action to close those public lands, the camping on the Murray, the Campaspe, the Grampians National Park. All of these areas are closed. It's just not safe to be there. We love people to be in the great outdoors and enjoying Victoria, but not today. Let's see what today brings, and there will be plenty of opportunities for Victorians to get back out there and enjoy the rest of summer following the catastrophic and extreme conditions we're seeing today. I'd like to pass back to the Emergency Management Commissioner.
Thanks, Chris and colleagues. So as you've heard this morning, Victoria is facing one of its most challenging and dynamic days, and we can't emphasise enough again, leave now is the key message if you are in a fire-prone or bushfire area. Make sure that you've downloaded the Vic Emergency app so that you are getting the latest intelligence and warnings about what is going on around your location. Make sure you've set a watch zone, and make sure you stay attuned to the many emergency broadcasters that we have in our state. We're now happy to take any questions that you might have.
Has the forecast changed for the better or worse since yesterday's news conference?
The forecast is very consistent with yesterday's media conference that we had here, where we're expecting, I guess, those challenging conditions to be with us in Victoria for most of the day. We will see a late change, late afternoon in the southwest of the state, moving into central parts. But some parts of the state, particularly in the north, won't see that change until overnight and into Saturday.
The 3 people missing, how close is firefighters being able to get to the house where they were last seen?
I'll let Deputy Commissioner Bob Hill talk to that.
So with respect to the 3 unaccounted for people in the Longwood East area, it is still a danger zone for emergency services. We have engaged the strike teams and the impact assessment teams that we hope to have deployed to that location today to make some preliminary assessments. But as I say, the dangers are certainly still presenting in that area, but our fire services are prioritising their efforts to go back to that location to identify whether we can eventually and hopefully identify and find those 3 people safe and well.
Just so people get an understanding of the time between the initial leak now and when officers returned, what was that time difference?
So the Country Fire Authority staff, it was a supervisory unit. It wasn't a firefighting tanker, if you like. It was a supervisor that was in that area. It was in the AM that he engaged those 3 people. It was in the afternoon period when they returned to find the dwelling had been destroyed by fire.
Can I ask Jason a question? CFA firefighters reported 3rd-degree burns to their hands. Are you across that?
Yeah, I can confirm, as the Commissioner alluded to, that we had a firefighter at the Ruffy Fire sustain significant injuries to their hand, treated on the scene and transported to Melbourne, where they remain in hospital. We've sought to visit and speak to that firefighter. They remain in good spirits. And obviously it just goes to show the dangers that our firefighters are experiencing on the fire ground. And, as Chief, I always get upset when my own gets hurt. And, we obviously wish a speedy recovery for this individual.
Do you know what happened to them?
The details of how the injury occurred is not known. It'll obviously be subject to our regular work health and safety investigations, but I won't be surprised. As I said, the conditions are what they are. The fires are quite dynamic and they are very challenging conditions, and they're trained, they do their best. Unfortunately, things like this happen from time to time, and I'm just grateful on this occasion that it was limited to the hand and is receiving the best medical treatment they can.
Are any of these fires, is there anything that you're looking at that could flare up?
This morning I was very concerned to a fire in St Andrews that obviously crews were deployed to, with CFA and forest fire management crews. They were able to deploy a heavy plant and put a containment line around that. I think that fire still remains at an advice level. It's a very valid point in terms of, even though there might have been a fire this morning, that's not to say when those really winds start whipping up later this afternoon that you couldn't see certain reignition. So again, if community sees smoke, if you see fire that is not in attendance with a fire truck, please dial 000 so that we know what's going on and can jump on them as quick as we can. If we can keep small fires small before they get hold, it is certainly the best strategy for today.
How much do people have access to, and who has access?
Yeah, I might ask the Minister responsible who's been dealing with the Commonwealth. Thank you.
So people are advised to go to the relief centre in Seymour, and other relief centres will be also stood up to be able to administer these payments, and the payments will depend on whether you are a child, individual, or whether they're a family, and they'll be made on that basis.
Just briefly for the Commissioner, if I may, those 117 additional personnel you mentioned, where are they coming from specifically?
Look, at this stage, we're working with the National Resource Sharing Centre, which is all our fire and emergency services across Australia, to look at where they'll be deployed from. Obviously, they'll come from states that are not being impacted by similar conditions like South Australia and southern New South Wales at the moment. So we don't have the exact details about where those additional 117 personnel will come from, but we do know and thank our New South Wales colleagues for the 92 Rural Fire Service personnel that are already on the ground fighting fires in Victoria this morning.
Is there a threshold where you may need to call in for overseas reinforcements as well?
Look, at this stage it's too early to know whether we would need to extend our resource request to an international sense, but there's every possibility. We're still very early in January. These are the first significant fires that we've seen, and if we continue to see prolonged and campaign type fires, which is every possibility, then we do have those arrangements in place to bring on additional resources, not only from across Australia and New Zealand, but also with our arrangements overseas.
Jordan, can we go the heat around the city today? Who's going to be most affected, and have we seen any spike in calls from the health?
Look, certainly we know the impact of heat on even young, well people is significant, especially in temperatures as high as those forecasted today. On Wednesday this week, when temperatures exceeded 40 degrees across various parts of Victoria, we did see an increase in heat-related illness, and we remind Victorians that children, babies and the elderly, as well as those with pre-existing conditions, are particularly at risk.
Advice for how they can avoid being at risk?
Look, what we would say to Victorians is to remain somewhere cool, avoid the hottest parts of the day. Even seemingly non-strenuous activity like gardening can be dangerous in this weather. Do not be outside undertaking strenuous activity. If you do not have cooling at home, attend a local shopping centre where you will be more safe and in an air-conditioned environment. And of course, maintain hydration, and please, Victorians, check in on your elderly neighbours, family members, not just once, but throughout the day. Check in on them and make sure they are remaining well and hydrated.
Perhaps for the Premier, I was just looking at the AEMO predictions this afternoon of an enormous spike around 3 o'clock. Are you confident that Victoria has infrastructure to keep power on across the state of summer?
Yeah, well, that's certainly the advice that we have, is there are sufficient power supplies, and that is why, again, it's important to take the advice from the emergency services about protecting yourselves. The advice from the Chief Executive Officer from Ambulance Victoria, it's important that Victorians take the advice. Today is an extremely hot day, and with the weather to change later in the day, it is important to stay protected, to stay cool, and also to stay in contact with family and loved ones who might be vulnerable and need support, but also to stay in contact. Stay tuned in to local radio, to local media, and please have the Vic Emergency app on your phone or device activated, have the alerts set up so that you can be notified, because conditions can change remarkably quickly, and the best way to be on top of those changes is to have access to the Vic Emergency app.
Jason, is it too early to say whether the cooler conditions over the weekend and next week will have any reprieve for firefighters, or are these bushfires expected to, or could it be misleading perhaps?
I think we will see that the frontal system move through the states, and naturally temperatures will drop, and so too will the wind speeds behind that frontal system. What remains to be seen, I guess, is how much rain is brought by that system as it moves through the state. And likewise, as I said before, we are expecting also that frontal band to bring potential for more lightning. There could be some showers with that, but that will remain to be seen, and we're just watching that cloud cover. The fires, particularly that my colleague spoke about in the Alpine regions and the Gippsland regions, intelligence is that they are well established now. So, I think we are looking at at least a week or two of campaign fires in that area, and hopefully weather is cooler for the next couple of days. It is summer. It's summer in Victoria, so we do see now the commencement of a fire cycle day, so a peak fire day, a number of cooler, calmer days, and then a return to a peak fire day. So we're talking to the Bureau around when we would expect that next frontal system to be moving through the Bight, and to when we might see our next spike day.
Can I just come back on I'll just give you the councils that are eligible for these payments. So it is Mansfield, Strathbogie, Murrindindi and Toowong.
Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. We'll obviously come back to you as any significant developments occur.
Thank you.
Good morning.
That's the latest information we have from Victorian authorities on what is presenting as a very dangerous day in Victoria. We have heard confirmed there that 3 people remain unaccounted for in Longwood East. Now, that's an area near Walwa. The Victorian police are not saying that these 3 people have died, instead only that they can't account for their whereabouts, 2 adults and a child. The very clear message from authorities there that if you are told to leave your home, you need to do so. Also, tell your family and friends where you are, so that if these sort of situations happen, authorities know where people are in terms of being on the fire ground or having got to safety. The fires are being called uncontrollable and unpredictable, and the worst may still be to come today. We're expecting more dry lightning, according to authorities, from 2 p.m. These are catastrophic conditions facing the state, so bad, in fact, that at times they're saying the aerial firefighting fleet will not be able to be in the sky. So that is of significant concern. I want to bring in my colleague Holly Stearns, who's been covering these fires for us this morning. 2 of the big fires of concern here, Holly, Longwood and Walwa. We've already heard confirmed there are multiple property losses.
Trudy, yeah, you've summed it up perfectly there. I mean, the authorities there being very clear about this, that this is a catastrophic warning for the state of Victoria. We have 2 blazes that are out of control at the moment, the Longwood blaze and also the Walwa blaze too. I'll get into more specifics around what areas and communities are in danger at the moment, but I just want to pick up on that point you raised there about the 3 people that are unaccounted for. Now, Victoria Police says that authorities went to the Longwood East area when they ran into these 3 people, 2 adults and a child. They alerted them that the risk was too high for them to leave and they needed them to take shelter immediately. When authorities later returned to that area in the afternoon, Trudy, the house that they were standing in front of had been completely destroyed. As you say, this doesn't mean that anything has happened dire to these 3 people, but these 3 people, 2 adults and a child, are unaccounted for currently. Authorities say there is a real risk to people's lives at the moment and that people need to heed these warnings. Here's Victoria Police.
Later that afternoon, those same fire service representatives re-attended that area to see the house that they saw those 3 people standing in front of had been completely destroyed. Those 3 people remain unaccounted for. Those 3 people, we do not know at this point of time where they may be.
Trudy, this situation is uncontrollable and out of control at the moment. We've got this Longwood fire and the Walwa fire too. So authorities say here that the situation can change so rapidly. It's dynamic, it's dangerous, and people need to keep up to date on the emergency services app. So what you're seeing here, and it's easy to put when you see it in person here. So you've got the red area there is that fire danger zone. So any community in that red zone there has been told to get out if safe to do so. So this is for the Walwa fire. This is near the New South Wales border. It has already burned through more than 9,000 hectares. This is a warning now issued for Kotong, Colac, Nariel Valley and surrounds. Authorities say leaving immediately is the safest option before conditions become simply too dangerous. Emergency services may not be able to help residents if they decide to stay. So the bushfire is about 25 kilometres west of Walwa. The bushfire is burning in Mount Lawson State Park and travelling in a south and southeasterly direction. Relief centres have been set up in the areas near the Murray Event Centre at Corryong and also Tallangatta Memorial Hall too. The Longwood fire, though, has burned through tens of thousands of hectares, Trudy, and several properties have been confirmed to have been lost, including a former school that was being used as a community hub. A CFA captain described it as if a bomb was going off. The fire poses an immediate danger to residents of course, Longwood, Loxley, including Gingin, Upton Hill, the Highlands, Yark and Kona, Fawcett as well as Strathbogie and even into Woodfield too. Now, this is going to be a catastrophic day. We are being warned that conditions could be worse than the black summer fires of 2019-2020. We are expecting to see temperatures in some parts of the state reach 46 degrees today. Most concerningly, though, is the wind gusts coming with that. The hot, dry and windy conditions, wind gusts of up to 100 kilometres an hour, as well as the soaring temperatures across the state. Here's the Emergency Management Centre.
So anywhere in the state today will be challenging and difficult conditions for our firefighters. With the winds that we'll see today, there will be periods where our aviation fleet, that is over 70 aircraft today, will not be able to fly. And so we are reminding communities you need to heed the warnings to leave now.
For those who might be thinking that they can stay and defend in these conditions, don't. It's dangerous, it's not courageous. It puts your life and also to the lives of the emergency services at risk as well. And
heard there from the Emergency Management Centre as well that about 70 firefighting aircraft have had to be grounded because it's simply too dangerous. I understand as well Ambulance Victoria has started pulling back some of its paramedics too because it's just too dangerous at the moment. Now, the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, was in Canberra today at the Emergency Management Agency, the national one in Canberra. He was being briefed on the extreme weather events that we're seeing right across the country. Of course, we've got these extreme weather conditions and fire conditions and warnings down in the south of the country, but up north you've got the cyclone warnings too. Here's the Prime Minister speaking about the current situation in Victoria.
These are difficult times and we are confronting some extreme weather conditions in different parts of Australia, different conditions. I'd say this is an opportunity for me to emphasise that people need to listen to the advice and as it comes through. If you're asked to leave your property, please do so.
Trudy, some firefighters from New South Wales and authorities there, I understand, have also come down to help the situation in Victoria. Authorities again saying that everyone in Victoria needs to be on alert today, not just, of course, they're focusing on the Walwa and Longwood fires, but everyone across the state of Victoria, because this situation is dynamic, it can change rapidly, and as we know, fires can start in any area across the state, especially with the temperatures that we're seeing today. Again, people advised to stay up to date on the Victoria Emergency app.
Holly Stearns, thanks for the latest there. We'll bring you any more information as soon as we get it, including pictures from above the fire grounds as we see that come into the newsroom. But I want to turn our attention to the other big story, one that has dominated the summer. After weeks of pressure, we saw it yesterday, the Prime Minister bowing to pressure from the public and from within his own ranks to call this Federal Royal Commission into anti-Semitism and social cohesion. It's going to be led by former High Court Justice Virginia Bell and look at 4 key areas, including examining how to tackle anti-Semitism, recommending any law changes for police, intelligence, immigration to combat it, look into the circumstances of the Bondi attack, including how governments responded to anti-Semitism in the years prior, and recommendations when it comes to social cohesion. I want to bring in political correspondent Cam Redden, who's been following this story for us all summer. Cam, we finally saw yesterday the Prime Minister relent to pressure. He insists, though, that he'd been working on it for some time.
Yeah, for weeks, Trudy. He just said he wasn't noting that publicly and wasn't indicating that this Royal Commission was coming. It was clear, though, even as of Monday, that senior ministers and members of his government were trying to play down the likelihood of this, but the winds changed quite quickly. Yesterday, the Prime Minister then confirming that Royal Commission. It will be, in his mind, the idea is to have it shorter than many other Royal Commissions that have dragged on for years. We note that main reason that he would put forward for why he did not believe a Royal Commission would be best, that the timeline so often blows out. But a restraint has been put on this for less than 1 year. He wants the final report back by the 1-year anniversary of the Bondi attacks. That will be December 14 of this year. Led by Virginia Bell, but aided too by Dennis Richardson. So the National Security and Intelligence Agency review that he was already tasked with will be rolled into the Royal Commission, and he'll provide an interim report by April. The Prime Minister this morning pushing back against some criticism he'd received that this took too long. It was 25 days from the day of the attack to when that Royal Commission was confirmed. He says, in his words, that is record time. The opposition critical of the way that it has all played out, but ultimately much of the politics seems to now be in the process of being set aside, with those who've been calling for a Royal Commission now looking to back Virginia Bell in with her work.
This is actually record time for ever calling a Royal Commission. We wanted to make sure as well that we had a full announcement, not a half one, a Royal Commissioner, terms of reference that have been agreed. I've spent many hours sitting down line by line with the community, with legal experts as well.
This is about Australians who want to see course correction, a government that responds in the national interest, because he gave us a litany of excuses about why this Royal Commission could not happen. One, then another, and all of those excuses unravelled. But it is a day to recognise the advocacy of Australians.
We'll hear from the New South Wales Premier, Chris Minns, shortly. That state, Trudy, will not pursue the Royal Commission it had planned, so you would think now he will agree to make all the agencies available to the Royal Commission anyway. In terms of what actually happens, so that is finally being ticked off today. It goes through the Governor-General. There's a process, but pretty much from the weekend, the Royal Commission is up. Virginia Bell can then set up an office, there'll be staff, and then eventually public hearings, but there will be a balance about what can be said publicly.
And it's a task she has to do pretty quickly, Cam, reporting back within the space of 12 months here on what is an incredibly vexed and complicated matter to try and solve.
And you would think, Trudy, with that list of recommendations that would require law changes, we've seen the government try and get this suite of hate speech laws and other things up in rapid time in just a couple of weeks. They're still working on that today before it can be then put to Parliament before Australia Day. But no simple tasks, certainly, but those who've been calling for it now have the commission they want.
Political correspondent Cam Redden, thank